Greetings! My name is Dwayne, and these are my angel gnome ornaments. I've created a pattern, and I've created kits too to build these cute little gnome ornaments. Now, the kits can either come with one ornament or two. So I'll have those available. There's a limited number of those, and I'll put those in my Etsy shop, Heartfelt Creation 99, and I'll put the link in the comments too. So let's get started on making these cute little gnome ornaments. I'm going to put them aside here, and what I'll do is I cut out my pattern, and I've got this beautiful fabric. It's a little bit white on one side with the silver, and the other one has silver and white, so you can choose whichever side you like. Just showing you the material that'll be involved in the kit there. And to start out with, I do the body, and how I do that is the fold, and I'm going to cut out the pieces here for you. Fold that over, and I put my pattern on the fold there to cut out. This will be my body piece. Start out here with. Normally I would put this down, pin it down, but I'm just going to do this real quick here to show you cutting out the body. Could draw it out too. I do that most of the time too. I draw it out onto my material rather than just cutting around it, but the pattern does come in cardstock. So we'll put that aside there. And that gives me my body piece for my gnome. Now with my gnome, with this gnome, I'm using actually foam, the foam cones. These are 3-inch long cones. It's a 3.5-inch long body. I'm going to have this overhang. Now if you have the 4-inch cones, it'll come out a bigger ornament if you want to try doing that. I would raise that up on the body there from 3.5 inches to 4.5, and then widen it out there just to make a little difference. I like these because the size that I create these in with the 3-inch cone, it comes out to just at 5 inches for the ornament. I don't want it something 6 to 7 inches, which would be like a 4-inch cone, but if you wanted to do that, it's a way of modifying it. Also with these, the wings that I have, these are 4-inch cross span. They look well, they work well with those too, but I have done them with the 4-inch cones too, which are more available, but I do with the kits include the 3-inch cone there. So I'm going to lay that right in the middle there, run my glue right down, but I'm not going to go all the way down. I'm going to leave about 3/4 of an inch down there because I want the overhang on the bottom there. Glue right up to the top, put them in the center there, that way I can do my wrap around. And I've done this too on the Woodland Wizards. You've seen some of my other gnomes that I've created. You'll see that same type of thing as far as working with cones. I'm going to put it in the middle there. Glue my side, again come down, make sure I'm leaving about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. Glue along the side of the cone there. My heat gun I keep on low heat. I get that question sometimes, especially working with cones, because people worry about melting the cone. Low heat works well with that. Come around to my other side, leaving the down at the bottom there. Run this along. Just fold it over. And that way I have about a 1/2 inch overlap on my bottom there, which now I'm going to cut slits in. I go about 3/4 inch, maybe an inch in to cut my slits. And by that I mean spacing between them there. And cut right up to the cone there. And the reason I do that is so when I fold them over, they're not they're not making a bulk on there. They will cover each other. And then we're going to have a circular base that we put over top there. Run my glue around. Make sure I get my top pieces there. And then we're just going to fold them in. Once I get those folded down, I've already cut out the rest of my pieces for the gnome. So I grab one of my bases here, and I'm going to glue that right down on top of there. Grab the glue gun here. And put that right on there. Now towards the very end, I'm going to put trim on. So I'm going to have this one I'm going to do probably in a silver trim. I have the gold and the silver available. And so this silver trim's just going to go around the seam here to cover up my seam where I bring it together there. So there I have my body covered here. On the side that I have the front seam, I'm going to place my beard. Now the beard, already cut out there. I'm going to bring it up here, so you're just going to see the top of the cone there, and have the beard come down, just hang over just a touch over that. But that's going to cover up my seam and give me the back just nice looking open there. Place that up there. Just a little dab of hot glue on there. And as I said, I'm going to have my top of the cone showing off just a little bit there. The arms, I cut out two of my arms, and again I'm doing the fold there, just like the hat and the body there. So I'm doing the pattern, laying it out there, fold that over. Now I'm going to sew up the side here. This is something that can actually be done too if you want with hot glue. So if you want to just glue up the side, you can do that. There's a very little to this gnome here that needs to be sewn up, and it's usually just the arm and the hat that I do. But if you wanted to, if you're just one that likes to do gluing instead of sewing, go ahead and just hot glue right up the side here. If you use a sewing machine, just quick and simple, right up the side. I'm just going to sew right up to the top there. When I get to the top, I turn it inside out. Now this material, because the way it is, it frays a little bit. I would just go ahead and just cut off a little bit of fraying. And what I'm going to do is glue my wood ball hand on here, and I'm going to put the fringe on there. So that's going to cover that fraying, because when I turn it inside out, it does. It usually gives me a little bit of fraying there. So once I have my arm sewn up, I'm going to put some polyfill in there. A little bit of polyfill. Doesn't take much. This helps, gives it some stiffness to it. And also something to glue my wood ball. Now the wood balls, I use 3/4 inch wood balls. I actually get mine from Hobby Lobby. There are some places online like Woodpecker Crafts, other craft locations that you can get them from, but I've had some pretty good quality as far as the wood balls that I've gotten from Hobby Lobby, so I stick with them. And I'm just going to glue the inside and then stick my ball right on there. As I said, this is going to help keep the fraying, any fraying down that you might see that I want to cut off there by putting the glue around the edges there, glue it on, and then I'm going to add my trim around there. So now with the other side, I turn it over so I got the seam facing up there, and that's going to be the one facing towards the body. I'm just putting a little dab of glue on there, and then just like with my other gnomes, I glue it on the side of the beard, and again, just down from the top of the cone there. I'm going to hold it there for a second, keep it in place there. All right. Boom. Get a little bit glue strings on me at times, but and then I have another arm already made up. So we're going to do the same thing. Just put a little glue on there. And just as quickly as that, we already got the body, the beard, and the arms all together there for this cute little angel gnome ornament. Have them glued on there. The hat, I'll show you the fabric here again. Talked about how with this fabric here, it's got more of a white side or a silver side. I'm going to have more of the white side showing on here. So in order to do that, I want that on the inside because I'm going to be turning the hat inside out. So I'm going to be folding it over, and I'm going to be sewing up this side here. But before I do that, I'm going to take a piece of baker's twine. Now I've used ribbon or I've used baker's twine, both, to create my hanging part here. So here I have a ribbon onto this one here. I'm going to grab baker's twine. What I do is I just cut off 12 inches, tie the tops together there. I want the white side showing, as I said, so I'm going to put that inside. And I put that right down the middle. Fold it over. And then what I'm going to do is just sew right up the side here. Again, you can hot glue if you like. Making sure that I sew the top here, sew it top, real well here. Tie it off. Make sure you got that tied into there. I've done that before too, where I've pulled it and I haven't had that in there well enough and the string comes off. So I want to make sure I sew it through there a few times and everything just to hold that in there. Then I turn it inside out. Final get here where you have your ribbon coming out the top there. So let's do that real quick here. Let's see if we can just show you that real quick, sewing here. Used to do the blanket stitch, and I still do for some of my stuff too. I like that stitch. I do it for a more ornamental sometimes too when I'm doing stuff on the outside of my gnomes. I'll still do that, but for the video, I'm just showing you. Run my stitch right up there. Put that in there. Blanket stitch is going to take a few more moments to do too, and I do have other videos on that if you want to see how I do that. Again, with those, usually I'll try to show a different color thread just so you're able to see that. That's why here I'd like to use the white thread, go along with it. I'll even try a silver thread at some time to put there. And I can start from the top or the bottom. I'm just so used to starting from the bottom there. Put it on there. But here the key thing again is I want to make sure I'm putting my thread through, basically through that knot. Make sure my knot's sticking out there. And I'll put it through, I'll sit here and do this for 3 or 4 times easy. just to make sure I'm tying it off real well before I cut my thread. And here's the part where I said you turn it inside out. And if I did it well enough, I should be able to just hold on to that string by twine there and pull it out. So I have my hat inside out now. Now with the base, and I've cut it out, you'll see the pattern calls for it on the fold there. This is where I'm going to cut in about a 1/2 inch, cutting in there, and then fold it over again, flipping it the other way, and cut in another 1/2 inch there. What that does is gives me an opening here to place on top of the gnome there, just so I know. I like to tell the why. I like to give people a reason why, and I find out even at work that it helps out if somebody knows why I do something. Now my hat too, I have it on a narrow, longer side, and usually I'll put those on the side so it's longer that way. And then I line up my hat. And I always start sewing where my seam is. And I come up from underneath, go right through. And I'm just going to sew it all the way around. So it's sitting on top of there, making sure I cover up my crisscross there. And that's why I don't want it to be too long either. I want it to be about, like I said, about a 1/2 inch cut on each side because I don't want the cut sticking out anywhere. But that covers that up. I'm going to grab the hat I've already done here. We're going to stick the hat on. Again, I'm going to have the seam in the back here. Some of my other ones where I'm going to be folding the hat or something, I will put the seam on the side, but for this one, I'm putting the seam in the very back there. Before I put it on, I'm going to stuff this hat. This is going to be, I'm not going to be doing creases or anything in the hat, so I want it to have some sort of stability in the hat. So I take just a little bit of polyfill, and I do in my kits. I include the polyfill, just little pieces of polyfill there to put up there, give it some nice little stiffness to it. My gnome, I'm going to glue just above where I have my arms there, just the top there, and glue that around. So I glue it back there. Where's my seam? There it is. And I'm going to place my hat right on there. Now when I add my wings, I'm going to be gluing this down too. So that's going to add some support there too there. A lot of times when I'm adding accessories, when I'm adding props, I like to have 2 or 3 places where I'm actually gluing things down just to hold, to make sure I have everything in place. So I've glued along the back, and what I normally do while I'm waiting for that to dry, giving it a couple moments, is that's when I'll move on and do something like the fringe around the area there. Do our extra little, and I start in the back. Anytime I'm doing something where I think there's going to be a seam or something, I'd rather the seam be in the back so it doesn't show as much. And I just go along the edge where I have the base there, and put a light line of glue. We're going to glue this down. And we're going to do this for the arms too. And I like to get that done before I put the wings on. I've done a few where I've tried to put the wing on first, and then I'm always trying to handle it. And I don't like trying to move things around or get around things. So, speaking of that, let's make sure we get the beard, because the beard comes down, but I don't want to get it into my glue while doing that. Again, just a nice little line going across. And this goes into my seams there, covers it up. Come around back, cut the extra off. And usually I'll leave just a little bit to fold over on top of each other there, just to hold each other down. So that'll give me my trim. If I have a little extra too much or something, I can trim that right off there. We'll straighten out my beard, and then I go back and I roll up my hat just a little bit. So at the top of my beard, I can just put just a little dab of glue there to help hold my hat down. Bring that down just a little bit there. And again, I grab one of my 3/4 inch wood balls. So it just takes three of the 3/4 inch balls for this gnome, and I include all the balls in the kit there. We're going to put those. And how I do that is I glue just a little line there, because what I want to do is just have it barely touch my hat. As I said, normally with accessories or things that I put on, I want to have it touching in a couple places. So it's just barely touching the hat, top of the hat there, and the beard when I glue it on. Keeping that in place there. So here we've actually completed the basic gnome. As I said, it's pretty much the same as my woodland wizards in the build there, and doing some of the things, putting it together there with the body on it there. But now it's a matter of putting accessories on there. The wings, these are actually butterflies. I have a boutique out in California I ordered these from. Beautiful. They have all different colors too. You'll see on some of my other projects that I'll use different colors for different things. How I add those on is, as I said, I'll glue this down just a little bit on the back of my hat here. And the part where the butterfly comes together, it's going to glue right in that seam there, right where I put my hat together there. So I'm going to glue that right in there, and what that's going to do is bring down my back just to where those arms come down. Dab of glue. And I can either do it on the gnome or on the butterfly, either way. Just putting it right on there. We're going to glue you on down there. Take a look from this side here. Look at that. And as I said, I got my wings sticking up here looking beautiful. I love how the silver all comes together. And then again, this comes down. So if you want to do them as a standing gnome, if you want to do, instead rather than as hanging ornament, he can do it. You do it as a standing. You can do it without the ribbon up top here too to hold for hanging. It just makes a cute little standing angel gnome too. So you have a variety of different things that you can do. Try to keep it simple there. Also, I include a charm. These are little special charms that I found a long time back that I like to include and add. We'll glue onto the top there before I'm done. I have a couple different angels that I've put into there, and that's just special to me too, in remembrance, family members, or just just a nice thank you for people too. But this is my angel gnome ornament. As I said, I'm putting together, I have a kit together. It's going to be available on my Etsy, Heartfelt Creations 99. I'll have the silver, I'll have the gold. I'll also have kits that include both the silver and the gold to make that. And I hope this has been an enjoyable video to watch, and I appreciate it. Thank you.